everyone, Professor K here, and I'm excited to show you today a little bit more about the design process for a website. So, as we think about the design process for a website and how that might be similar to the design process you might explore for something in print and how it might be different, one thing that you can think about is what are the different stages of a design, right? How do we get the information we need to actually complete a project? So to do that, one thing that we need is planning, right? We need to understand what the requirements of a website are. This is very similar to advertising or even journalism, right? Maybe you're writing an article. What do you need to make this work of that? What goals do you need to solve? What are the requirements? In web design, this goes a little bit further. So, along with what the goal of the project is and what look and feel the client might have in mind, what ideas everybody has, you also might do some things like analyze the existing data from Google Analytics. You might look at the existing users of the website and say, hey, how can I make your experience better? We're going to talk about all these things and more further in the course. But for right now, remember that there is a planning phase in every website redesign. In the second phase, which is what we're going to focus on today, you work on design. And the purpose of this phase is really to define content priority and look and feel. So today we're going to be talking about wireframes and how those develop into designs. Wireframes are really important for determining the content, priority, and hierarchy. So you can see why this ties really closely in with what we just learned about semantics in HTML. If you're thinking about the code and how code should be marked up, wireframes are like the visual extension of that. What is my hierarchy? What is my priority? What is my layout? And today we're going to learn about how to show that in XD and then translate it over to HTML code. Once you're through the design phase, there are a few other phases to look at. Development is where you actually bring that wireframe to life and start coding it. So we'll start going a little bit into the development phase with our next assignment. And then finally, this last phase, which is launch and maintenance. And we'll talk about that further in the course as we actually get into project work. But it helps to understand how these pieces all fit together in the larger website redesign process. So let's take a look at a real example of this. I'm going to show you some work we did recently over in Interactive Design for the Boston University Housing website. So during any website redesign process, you're probably going to have some method of presenting your work. In Interactive Design, we use a web page to do this, and we actually have links to each of the wireframes, mockups, and what's also called style boards. We'll talk a little bit more about style boards next time. Right now, we're going to be focusing on wireframes. So this is interesting. You can actually see how this developed over time. When you publish your wireframes to Adobe XD, you'll get a screen like this where you can see everything at once. And what's neat about this is that you can kind of click in, and we're just going to close out the discussion tab. First of all, one thing you'll notice is that these are pretty ugly, right? If you take a look at these wireframes, they're not really designed. That's the point. The point of wireframes is to determine content hierarchy and priority. What should be the first thing that grabs your attention on the page, and what order should things go in, and maybe some like real general layout ideas, but no design work yet. So notice that everything is in straightforward typefaces. You're not worrying about type. You're not worrying about color. You're just worrying about how you get from place to place on the website. Here, one thing that Charlie has done to make it easier for the client to understand this and how to navigate through these wireframes is by making anything that's interactive blue. And again, that's ugly, right? That's not something that we would want in the final design, but it does help everyone who encounters these wireframes understand better how they can interact with them. For example, you can't click on Boston University Housing, but if you click on student residences, that will actually take you to a student residences landing page. Same with full menu. If you click on full menu, you'll be able to see how things should be laid out in that menu. And what's interesting to notice is that he's got some low, like really low level, low fidelity ideas of how things should show in the final version. So let's compare this with the current housing website's mega navigation. Notice how he's got this explore student residences call out up here. And in the final navigation, when you click full menu, he actually managed to get that in the final version. But notice that things have changed a little bit, and he didn't get into the styling. He didn't talk about there being a photo in the background here. All you had to know in the wireframes was that this would have a higher priority and be treated a little bit differently than the rest of the navigation. That's the purpose of wireframes. So let's go back to our homepage and just notice a few other things. He's included some cues here on what types of media should be included. So here, there's a little play button to indicate this is for video. And then just real simple, low fidelity boxes to help us understand that there should be large callouts, pieces that help direct us to different parts of the website on the web page. So you can understand from this wireframe that there is a mega navigation, and how we're going to navigate the website and understand content is through these large callouts. And some of the primary callouts that are going to be on the Being Housing website are student residences, living on campus, and then lower priority services and amenities, assignments, and summer housing. So you can see that through these wireframes, Charlie really focused on the content priority and how people will move from page to page, how they'll get to student residences, what will happen with student residences, how things will be grouped, such as large traditional style versus small traditional style, and what will happen when you click on residence. So notice here that the whole point of this is really to define content priority, hierarchy, what you'll encounter, how you'll navigate the website in general, and functionality as well. How will you get from place to place? How will you get back to student residences? These are the kinds of questions that you answer in wireframes. So as you think about wireframes today, and as you think about how these translate into your final designs, keep these things in mind. Remember that what you are doing with wireframes is not creating a black and white design. It is going to be thinking about what content the user should encounter in what order. After that, it's also thinking about how does a user get from screen to screen. Now, in our first assignment, we're not going to have multiple pages, so you won't have to worry about that just yet. But as we build on this idea and this works and we explore wireframes further, you're going to need to decide, how do my audience members get from the homepage to a tool? What happens when I use different items in the tool? How should things behave if something changes? These are the questions that wireframes are going to answer for you. So now that you have a better understanding of what wireframes are and what the purpose of them is, let's take a closer look at how to actually create those in Adobe XD.